Last night, President Biden hosted French President Emmanuel Macron for the first White House state dinner in more than 3 years. Yep, the French like to eat late, so Biden was like, got it, 4:30 it is.
That's as good as it gets on late night TV. You know, it's not a comedy show. It's a Democrat Party propaganda show. I'm surprised he wasn't at the dinner. Well, he could have been. Maybe they pre-recorded. And then they take their private jets down to Washington and land at Reagan, where normal people can't land their private jets. But corruption goes a long way when you know how to use it properly. Yeah, a little poached Maine lobster with squash ravioli sounds very nice. A calotte of beef, certainly, with marmalade. Triple cooked butter potatoes. You know, the usual stuff. That's actually what my best girl and I had at home last night. You know, in reality, we had Omaha steaks. We had a couple of, we did have Omaha steaks and potatoes too. The bacon wrapped fillets for dinner last night. But we were not invited. We were alarmed that we were not invited to the state dinner by the Biden White House. You see Joe Biden? Joe Biden went out to dinner with Emmanuel Macron the night before last. They had the state dinner at the White House last night. Night before last, they went to Fiora Mare, in Georgetown on the waterfront in the building complex where Nancy Pelosi lives, with multi-million-dollar condos along the Potomac River overlooking, looking at the Kennedy Center and the Key Bridge. It's a pretty nice location. There are a couple of bars down there that are good, good fun, at least. And they have cold bottles of Bud Light. In the summertime, nice place to go along the river. They got, Tony and Joe's and Nick's Riverside Grill. Nice. And, kind of beer places where people hang out along the river. But very close to that in the same complex. Fiora Mare. Very fancy indeed. And the photographs show the Joe Biden and Emmanuel Macron leaving the restaurant after dinner. And Macron looked like Joe Biden's caregiver. He had, as they were going down a couple of steps, Macron was on Joe Biden's right shoulder, and he took Joe Biden's right forearm in his right hand, and he wrapped his left arm around Joe Biden's back, as though, appropriately, he was very concerned that Joe might fall down the stairs and hit his head. And can you imagine, think of Joe Biden now. Imagine Joe Biden after hitting his head. What would we do then? Honestly, have you seen that movie Dave? They'd have to get an impersonator. In fact, there are people who already believe that there's an impersonator living in the White House, but that's what the Internet's for. Yeah, so Macron was shepherding Joe Biden around like he was a professional caregiver. Very thoughtful, I thought. Very caring. He probably learned that from his wife, his teacher. His wife, his teacher. She's my sister. She's my daughter. Because he married a school teacher. She was very giving indeed. And the room was full of faithful Democrats, like the billionaire Tim Cook. Did you see he brought a beard? He brought a beard to dinner. Got to bring a beard to dinner at the White House for the big dinner. And then it was full of media people like Stephen Colbert and Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, because it's all a great big circle fest in a hot tub. It's a big hot tub, but yeah, the big state dinner last night, and there were plenty of moments. There were moments at the state. Although, again, I was not invited. My best girl and I were not invited. We were on our own for dinner last night, once again. But fortunately, we had our Omaha steaks, so that's good. And we've got a lot to say about all that, because of stuff going on. Now, Tara Reid, the media hit her in the back of the head with a shovel, like Anthony Perkins at the end of Psycho 2. I think, was that Psycho 2? I think it was Psycho 2. And they buried Tara. Tara Reid, of course, was a Joe Biden Senate staffer on Capitol Hill who was sexually assaulted digitally by then-Senator Joe Biden. She was a young woman working for the senator, very excited to be working on Capitol Hill. And she found herself pinned against a wall with the senator's hands, Russian hands and Roman fingers they used to say in Joe Biden's time. And Tara Reade reemerged. The Daily Caller has the story, and the Washington Post doesn't because they're not a legitimate newspaper. Was the billionaire Jeff Bezos at the state dinner last night, or is he not sucking up enough? Hard to say. I'll take a look. But the Daily Caller has the story. Tara Reade calls GOP Majority House to investigate alleged sexual assault by Joe Biden. I did read a so-called mainstream media news article on this yesterday, and they were doing everything they could to discredit Tara Reade because, you know, that whole pound me too thing? The Democrats pound you, and then, when you call them on it, then they pound you again because it's all a big lie. That, believe the women thing, as all a big lie. Oh, Hunter Biden was at the state dinner last night with that woman that he married. He had known her for a week, so he married her, and now they have another child, not a bastard child this time, and one that they acknowledge on the Christmas stockings and the White House fireplace and all that stuff. But Hunter Biden was there. Do you think he can get crack into the building, right? They're not going to pat him down or anything like that. No cavity search for him. So, and now Joe Biden, we got all kinds of stuff going on. Have we figured out what's going on with the race? We still have a recount going on in Colorado for a House of Representatives race. December 6th, we have lots and lots of early voting already going on in Georgia because Herschel Walker he's the target of the Democrat Party and the media. But I repeat myself, because that guy who's too radical for Georgia, the Democrat, he's got to win. The Democrats, the fix is in. It's like I'm swiping the side of my right nostril with the tip of my right index finger. The fix is in. Speaking of which, we're still waiting because the Democrats, they came along and they fixed our system of electing our leaders, and now it's so broken that it may be impossible to repair what they've done. But the people at CNN are excited to announce Biden proposes South Carolina as first primary state in drastic shakeup of presidential nominating calendar. And what do they want to do with California? Because they got another plan for California. I was reading one article on this. The headline said that Biden proposes fix, you see, for the way we elect our leaders. When they say fix, they mean it in the way they meant it in The Sting, because when they say fix, well, it may not mean what you think it means. But he's got, Biden pushes primaries shakeup, requests DNC make South Carolina first, elevate Georgia and Michigan. See, because it's about fixing the way that we elect people. That's on the front page of the Washington Post. Pretty remarkable times we're in. The news media is in on it. So, they talk about the fix being in. The fix is in. Pretty amazing stuff. And that's it. And, Macron and Biden put out a joint statement. And they mentioned the protests in Iran, but apparently forgot to mention the protests going on in China. Because, Biden and the Biden family, they've got financial interests in China, and they're taking care of things. Know what I'm talking about? So Biden's supply chain advisor to leave White House. We've got a supply chain advisor. He's going to leave the White House. I think he should be fired. Should probably be fired, don't you think? So we've got a lot of Biden news. Tanks roll into China's streets in chilling echo of Tiananmen Square massacre as Xi cracks down on the white paper protests. The white paper protests, because they hold up blank sheets of paper because they're not allowed to hold signs that say anything. So they've come out with blank sheets of paper to represent that. And the American media and the Democrats in America, who are in charge of almost everything, don't care about that. The Republicans aren't saying enough about it either. But the Democrats are in charge, and they don't have a lot to say. Ron DeSantis had a couple of things to say about it yesterday, and he said those things quite well, I've got to say. Speaking of the Democrats fixing everything in Arizona, Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs, she's the Secretary of State that was running for governor, and she, quote unquote, won. The counting went on until they won. And now Katie Hobbs, when you put one of the contestants in this game show in charge of the election processes and procedures, that might raise red flags, in third world countries. But here in the United States of America, there was a time like 20 minutes ago when the United States would throw a flag on this if we saw it in another country. Now, not a big deal. Katie Hobbs in Arizona, her office is threatening a county board with arrests and 2 years in jail if they don't certify the results showing that she won. Now, some of the county board members are Republicans, and they point out that there were a lot of problems with voting machines and other issues, and they are therefore slow to certify. But since she's the Secretary of State and the winning candidate, she wants to threaten these people with 2 years in jail each if they don't declare her the winner. Honestly, Bong Bong Marcos in the Philippines is laughing at this one over breakfast, but the Washington Post and the New York Times, they're good with it. They're fine with it because the Democrats they've fixed the way we hold elections, and now it's better, you see. That's how this works. When you're a Democrat, this is what information dominance is all about. Am I right? Yes, I am. Also, San Francisco will allow the police to use robots that kill to go after citizens in the United States of America. It's like RoboCop, the movie RoboCop. And what was his name? Murphy. And it's like RoboCop. It's the beginning of RoboCop.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
That's exactly right. Dead or alive, you're coming with me. And it's already happened at least once in the United States at a police massacre that the Democrats held during a Black Lives Matter rally in Dallas, Texas. They had to use a robot to go in and kill the Democrat psychotic, racist, mass murdering, cop killer, suicide attacker, one of many Democrats doing that. And they had to use a robot to go in and get him. But that's kind of an interesting development, I've got to say.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
The Daily Caller has learned that Immigration and Customs Enforcement dramatically underreporting certain numbers at our border. In fact, underreporting by 18,000%. Not the total overall number, but I'll explain that statistic to you. It's pretty extraordinary. Also, last month, the record number of gotaways at our southern border, and the Democrats are good with that because, if your whole family is killed, they're fine with that too. They're trying to reduce our carbon footprint. Not only do they want us to eat bugs to stay alive, the Democrats, it was in the Washington Post the other day. Now the Washington Post has a story on you washing your clothes. You'll never guess what their ideas are here. Washer, dryer, all that stuff. Basically, they're against that because the planet, and California calling for reparations. Reparations. Let me tell you something. If you're African American, it's time to move to California. California, here I come. Because they're offering almost $250,000 to every African American. If you're a young African American, you're in your 20s, you're married, you have 2 or 3 kids, just get on the bus, Gus, and go to California because it's worth more than $1 million to you. You're going to get more than a $1 million payout if you're a couple with 3 kids. Just honestly, get on the train. No train strike. And we're raising money for the Fisher House today. And I want to explain some of that coming right up.
There's only one Chris Plante. The Chris Plante Show.
If you are 65 or older, you know this. Watching your hard-earned dollars fly out the window on healthcare costs is frustrating. Well, here's something that can really help, and it's worth taking a minute to look into. MediShare 65 Plus. MediShare is a community of Christians who share each other's healthcare bills, and it really is a community too. People encourage and pray for each other. Well, Medishare 65 Plus is a low-cost option for those with Medicare Parts A and B, and it fills in the gaps where Medicare stops. It's a great way to fight inflation, too. You can lock in one low monthly price for up to 10 years. And it's easy. You can use any Medicare-approved doctor or get 24/7 telehealth access from the comfort of your home. Very worth looking into during Medicare open enrollment, which ends December 7th. If you join right now, your second month share will be free. So don't miss this chance. Call 800-PSALM-16. That's 800-PSALM-16. 800-PSALM-16.
The World Tournament of Soccer happening in Qatar is finally here. And with all the weird kickoff times and all the other sports happening simultaneously, it can be kind of hard to keep up. So to make sure you're up to speed, be sure to listen to Qatar Kick Around for the daily wrap-up of all the action from the tournament. From the group stage all the way to the final, Andy, Lars, and Peter are here for you with recaps and opinions of what happened that day in Qatar. Everything can be found at thekickaround.com, the Cumulus Podcast channel on YouTube, or wherever you listen.
We're back, and it's Friday. In the last few weeks since the what we ludicrously referred to as Election Day, last few weeks have been kind of, unusual weeks. A little more high volume than usual. But yesterday and today, we at the Chris Plante Show are humbly helping the great people at Fisher House to raise money. We do this once a year. Been doing it for a decade and a half or so. And I'd like you to call 888-294-8560 and give $10 or $1 million, whichever you think is appropriate. And right now on the phone with us, we have Mary Considine. And Mary Considine is the chief of staff for the Fisher House Foundation, who started there as a volunteer long ago. And now, Mary, thank you for being here. Now you've made your way to chief of staff for the organization. Tell me about Fisher House and the goal of having 100 Fisher Houses around the world. Where are these houses?
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Chris. I really appreciate the chance to talk about Fisher House, my favorite topic. They're homes away from home for military families and veterans families while a loved one is receiving care at a military hospital or a VA hospital. They're usually just across the parking lot, a quick walk to the hospital. Families can stay there completely free of charge for as long as necessary while they're supporting their loved one getting better, hopefully.
And it is December now, and that means it's just about Christmas time. Tell me about Fisher Houses at Christmas time.
We try to make sure that all of the comforts of home, that if you could be home right now, you would experience that inside a Fisher House. And that is a group effort. There are volunteers who are there making sure these families are taken care of and comfortable, coming in to decorate Fisher Houses for the holidays, volunteering to sign up and, maybe donate or cook a meal for families. Because day in and day out, even though it's Christmas coming up, they're still focused on their loved one's recovery. And so to bring them that taste of home, that's the above and beyond that you only find at a Fisher House. You'd never find that in a hotel.
And for many years during this effort, as long as I've been involved, we've been dealing with the post-September 11th wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and elsewhere, sometimes places where we don't talk about it very much. And now it looks like, with Joe Biden's disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, it looks like we're not at war anymore. And there's still a great need for Fisher Houses because of what?
Well, we have a whole new generation of veterans from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But beyond that, we may not have had Fisher Houses here during Vietnam or Korea or in between, but now the Fisher Houses are serving those communities still. So the Fisher House is for veterans of all eras. It's for military families who are stationed far from home, dealing with any type of medical emergency that you could imagine that would create stress. And our goal, like you said, on the road to 100 is to make sure we bring Fisher Houses to more and more communities all across the country, helping veterans to take this burden of where they're going to stay while getting well off of their shoulders.
And I've been at Fisher Houses. I've visited Fisher Houses, and I've been there at Christmas time at least a couple of times. And I've encountered young military couples in their 20s who are there because their child, their baby, is dealing with cancer. And this, young couple volunteer to serve their nation, put themselves in harm's way, carrying on family tradition. Baby is in a medical crisis, and we don't pay these people $1 million a year. And Fisher House is there to provide to make their lives so much better while they're dealing with the most difficult traumas in their lives. And it's also true of, World War II veterans and Korean War veterans. And it's important for us to support this organization because they're so incredible. Mary, thank you for being here. 888-294-8560. Give until it hurts. Again, today and yesterday, 2 days a year, we work with our friends at Fisher House to help raise millions of dollars over the years for them. And the phone number to donate generously is, or modestly, is 888-294-8560. And if you know Fisher House, you know how great it is. If you don't know Fisher House, well, now you do. And it's an extraordinary and great organization. Now, back to the crazy people, because they're everywhere. Fairfax County, Virginia, which has kind of been in the eye of the storm when it comes to school board madness and schoolhouse madness, where they have, it was in Fairfax County where they had the young man who said he was a woman, and they said, oh, you should use the ladies' room. And he sexually assaulted a high school girl there, and the school board said, oh, well, that's not good, so they moved him to another school. And guess what? He sexually assaulted another girl there. And that's where the father at the school board meeting was dragged to the ground by the police. And, it's kind of the end of civilization as we know it because the left is here and they're insane. But there was a school board meeting, and they had the, opportunity for people to speak, to address the all-powerful school board. And at the school board meeting, there was a woman who got up to speak. Her name is Karen. Another Karen. They got a lot of Karens out there. Karen, I'm going to go with Solon, S-O-L-O-N, Karen Solon. Karen Solon is a teacher at a school, if you can believe that, and allegedly a parent. Apparently, according to news reporting, a parent and a teacher. So she's like, 2/3 of the PTA. She is, all she has to do is be an association, then she's the whole PTA. If she can sing, she can do that. So here's Karen Solon at the Fairfax County School Board meeting explaining biology as it is understood by the Democrat Party today.
We do assign gender at birth, and we do not always get it right, period.
That's right. We assign gender at birth, and we do not always get it right, period. And she is, she's a school board, she's at the school board meeting. She's a teacher and a parent. And that's her view, is that sometimes children, when they're born, maybe the light is not particularly good in the room. Maybe there's a little bit of confusion on the part of the adults in the room who say, hey, that looks like a girl. And as far as Karen is concerned, well, that's not really the only measure. How does your child feel? You shouldn't really assign a gender until the person is 17 or 18, or maybe kindergarten, when you can help them decide, because they're pretty creepy stuff. You want to talk creepy, This is pretty creepy stuff, I got to say. And there was a time not so long ago when if you were going around saying things like that, it's possible that you'd get a visit from the Child Protective Services people would say, excuse me, we'd like to have a discussion with you about your treatment of your child. But the Fairfax County School Board, they're considering changes to sex education, as you might imagine, right? And time has expired for parents who want to weigh in on new proposed changes to sex education in Fairfax County, Virginia public schools. Used to be such a nice state. The deadline to submit your comments to the school board expired yesterday, and one change would teach sex ed in gender combined classes in 4th through 8th grade, where all students will receive instruction on the menstrual cycle, unless they're opted out by their parents. That's not really the major area of concern. We have one of our favorite listeners, in a special way, is Mike the Lib. Many of you may be familiar with Mike the Lib. Mike the Lib is consistently dazzling in his worldview. And I spoke to him probably about a year ago, and I asked him about this transgender in school thing. And Mike the Lib explained that God is dead, and now the Democrat Party is God, and they will explain the rest later. How many genders are there?
I don't know, Chris.
You don't know. See, that's one of the problems.
But now because technology has allowed us, medical science has allowed to correct errors. Errors in genetic makeup.
All right, so God makes errors in genetic makeup, but fortunately modern science has allowed us.
He does.
So
God that makes errors. That's why we have cancer. That's why we have viruses.
That's why we have cancer. That's why he certainly does. God makes mistakes. That's why we have cancer and viruses. So gender is like cancer, and Democrats are like viruses. Today, they're a lot like monkeypox. I'm sorry, now it's Mpox, because an international organization renamed it, and we all must follow suit. We must goose step behind the World Health Organization because, that's what we got going. This is today's Democrat Party. And the school board meeting, their gender is sometimes a mistake. And in other cultures, as Karen explained at the school board meeting, other cultures view gender or genderlessness differently than we do. And if you're a lefty in the United States of America, any other culture's view of anything is probably better than our view of the same thing, because that's your Democrat Party. They're really something. Man, oh man, oh man. Now, Robert Rigby, the Fairfax County Public Schools Pride. This is the organization, Fairfax County Public Schools. Now, the pride is not in the education, see, because pride, the Democrats have seized the word pride. And the word pride, you're not proud to be an American. There is no American pride, Marine Corps pride. No, pride means LGBTQIA, ampersand pound sign. So Robert Rigby of Fairfax County Public Schools Pride says the new changes to the sex ed curriculum are more inclusive. They use the words, but they don't know what they mean. More informative, same applies here, and welcoming to LGBTQ students. How about to non-LGBTQ students? Well, screw them. If not now, then later. So that's the thing. I think it's good because it helps all kids, said Rigby. I don't think queer kids will be put in a spot of having to out themselves when they aren't ready to, like in kindergarten. Is that the thing about that? I think that's pretty much the thing about that. Yeah, well, that soundbite, we heard the soundbite out of the Fairfax County Public Schools meeting, the parent-teacher, it's open comments, allowed to have comments, and those were among the comments that pretty remarkable times that we're in, I've got to say. That's it for us. Now, the for as a culture, but pay no attention to that. The people at MSDNC were very excited this morning. I watched them on the television because somebody's got to. When I turn them on my cable dial, their ratings go up. That's Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. They were all at Twitter, if you will. Do people say all at Twitter anymore? Has that word been murdered? They were very excited this morning. First, because they were at the lobster dinner last night at the White House, where you see the Maine lobster fishermen are mocking an even liberal, sometimes Republican senator from Maine, Susan Collins, put out a statement saying, hey, well, if lobster is good enough for the White House dinner, the state dinner with Emmanuel Macron, who is playing the role of Joe Biden's caregiver while he's here, it should be good enough for the rest of America, because the left, PETA, and the Biden administration, they're doing everything they can to put the lobster fishermen in Maine out of business, even though they enjoy eating lobster with abandon. But even Susan Collins put out a thing saying, good enough for the state dinner. Maybe you guys shouldn't be doing everything you can to put the lobster fishermen in Maine out of business, which is what the Democrat Party is doing, because they like to murder anything good. Anything that is good, they like to kill. But Joe and Mika this morning, they were very excited to announce, and they were all at Twitter, that the court has struck down President Trump's special master. Isn't that racist? I mean, you can't even say master bedroom. So what are you going to do with that special master? Trump's special master blocked in massive DOJ win. That's the headline from Newsweek fake magazine. Massive DOJ win is right there in the headline in quotation marks. Now, how is it a win for the DOJ, the Department of Justice? Well, here's the thing. If it's a defeat, this is the news media's view, and they view it through the prism of the Democrat Party, and they hate Trump. So this is how they view it. A federal appeals court on Thursday halted the third-party review of documents seized from former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. You remember that big FBI raid with the rifles and the flashing lights and the body armor? How many of them were there? Like 500 of them or something? There were probably 20 some odd. Like when they raided that Catholic guy's house who's pro-life with his 7 kids inside. Siding with the Department of Justice, Newsweek magazine types, and allowing the federal government to use the documents in its criminal investigation. In the 21-page opinion from the 11th Court of Appeals, the 3-judge panel, 2 of them were allegedly Trump appointees, the 3-judge panel, but that's because Republican-appointed judges actually go by the law rather than what the party mandates, what the party expects of them. And Joe and Mika and the little circle fest there at MSDNC this morning, they were shocked, but they're Trump appointees, because when they hear that, they're shocked, because they know that if they were Obama appointees, they would vote with the party. They would rule on the side of the party, because that's what's expected of them, because the party is corrupt, and their nominees for the bench are corrupt, and their senators are corrupt, and like Sheldon Whitehouse with his all-white private beach club, calling on the IRS to target the political enemies of the Democrat Party. I shared that story with you yesterday. Like Lois Lerner and the Obama administration did, use the IRS to target their political adversaries. Any Tea Party groups or groups with the name Patriot targeted by the IRS. And then Lois Lerner scoffed at the Congress and laughed and, went away. Now she's probably a rich Democrat living, I think she was to begin with, living around Washington, D.C. So the panel wrote that Judge Eileen Cannon, who granted Trump's request for a special master in September, did not have the jurisdiction to block the United States from using lawfully seized records in a criminal investigation. Now, it's an amazing country we have here. The law is clear, read the order. We cannot write a rule that allows any subject of a search warrant to block government investigators after the execution of the warrant, nor can we write a rule that allows only former presidents to do so. Sure, I got to tell you, I'd like to think that what goes around comes around, but I'm not so sure that's actually the case anymore. And the news media is celebrating this as a victory for the Justice Department. which is a strange way to frame it, isn't it? And liberal media, radical left wing like Mika Brzezinski with, an IQ of 11. She, boy, oh boy, very excited that this is happening. Yes, sir. And I've got so that's it's a bad day for President Trump. The judges ruled, I'm sure, based on their view, their interpretation of the law, and the media says it's a victory, like it's a team sport. The Department of Justice and Oregon of the Democrat Party, not just now under Biden, they have a victory, and it's a defeat for President Trump. So it's the federal government, the Justice Department, the law enforcement apparatus, our chief law enforcement officer versus President Trump. Because, they raided his home. And then, remember, they had that photo shoot where they spread the classified cover sheets on the floor and they took photos and then they immediately issued them to the media. They included a magazine rack that had nothing to do with it, but they thought it was mockable because, the FBI, the Fascist Bureau of Intimidation. See our T-shirts at the Chris Plant store. Remarkable time. A defeat for President Trump and a win for the Justice Department. Interesting. We're at 888-630-9625, and we have Fisher House fundraiser today coming up.
You're listening to The Chris Plant Show.
And again, today is Fisher House Day, yesterday and today. The phone number to give generously is 888-294-8560. And on the phone with us, we have Michelle Horn. And Michelle, thank you for being here. Michelle is a now retired U.S. Army officer who served in Afghanistan and Iraq. And you joined Fisher House in 2019, not so long ago.
Yeah, that's right. And thanks so much for having me today.
You betcha. You bet your bottom dollar. Well, tell me, you joined Fisher House. Tell me what you've seen since you got there in 2019.
Well, what a crazy time to, I retired in 2019, came straight to Fisher House. It was an incredible transition from the military, really one that I couldn't be more grateful for. But of course, right after 2019, we went into 2020, which everybody knows how that went.
Yeah.
But, Fisher House, it's been incredible. All the things that I had known about Fisher House while I was in the military, was in the Army, were really even better than I knew they would be. I mean, it really was incredible to learn about all the other programs. I always knew the Fisher Houses were there and available, and that was an incredible comfort. But when I started learning really about the other programs, like the Hero Miles programs, Hotel for Heroes, support to Warrior Games and Invictus Games, and scholarships, and even the support to other nonprofits that we help with, it really became apparent to me right at the very beginning when I started learning about it all and really getting to know the organization, just what an incredible place it is to be part of. I mean, the mission is just so important and makes such an impact. And then the best part has been meeting the families. I mean, every day I get to talk to families and hear their stories because I'm the vice president for communications. So I get to really get to know people and hear why Fisher House was important to them. And it's really heartwarming to hear how much it affects our greatest heroes.
It's such a great organization because the Fisher family sought out and spoke to people and found that there was a gap between what the VA and the military provides and what the families need. And when they saw the need, they saw the gap, they came in and they filled the gap. And there are Fisher Houses at Bethesda Naval, Walter Reed, at Burns Center in Texas, at Landstuhl in Germany, and everywhere they need to be. And 93 Fisher Houses now, shooting for 100 Fisher Houses, right?
Yeah, we're really proud of that. In fact, next week we will install furniture at the 94th house, and we should reach that 100th house in the next 2 years.
And we're looking at everybody, the Fisher Houses, dressing up for for Christmas and for the holidays, and Christmas trees, and taking everybody into account. They're just extraordinary, and the people, the families that are there outside of or near the hospitals, the military hospitals where their loved ones are. They're making dinner together at night. They're making breakfast together in the morning. They're there as a support network for one another. And whether by design, it was by design or not, it's just such an extraordinarily effective. It is the perfect solution to the problem. Am I right, Michelle?
Absolutely. These are homes away from home. There is no better way to describe it. It is a place where families can gather together, can lean on each other, and know that they have a place of peace.
Thank you, Michelle.